All right, so today we're going to be talking about some tips for Manifest Timeways. Manifest Timeways is the second boss of Dawn Lower or uh, Galakron's Fall, whatever you want to call that dungeon. And the boss is actually quite challenging, and there's definitely some specific strategies that, if you know how to deal with them, it makes the boss a lot easier. And if you're a Blizzard employee, I would recommend you turn off this video now, or take off your headphones, or stop watching immediately, because we're about to talk about some stuff that makes the boss a lot easier in some ways, but I'm also going to give just general advice as to how to deal with the boss, because the boss is, even by itself, pretty hard, and this strategy that I'm going to be talking about today might also get fixed a little bit. So, first and foremost, let's just give like a comprehensive overview of the boss, and then we'll talk about like tips for how to deal with the boss itself, and then specific stuff that you can do on this fight that is maybe a bit sketchy if you're a Blizzard employee. First and foremost, the general strategy of this boss is to probably just go counterclockwise, just always move rightwards against where the fragments of time orbs are coming from. And so whenever these fragments of time orbs come out, you always try to hug the boss close to where the fragments of time orbs are coming out and just move to the right with them. This means that you just kind of catch the inside track like you saw me do right there, and then just continue to move along with them. If you do this, it's very difficult to actually get hit by the orbs. If you get hit by the orbs, you are very likely to die. That is probably the most important thing that you can learn, is just how to do your movement and optimize your movement for this part of the boss. The second part of the boss, and the only other mechanic that you have to know, is the Chrono-faded. And the Chrono-faded, typically how Blizzard wants you to deal with it, is you stand in a light zone, a healer dispels you immediately, everybody gets pulsed for AoE, and then the second Chrono-faded debuff goes off, and your group gets pulsed for AoE again. And in just standing in the light zone, while it does make you take increased damage, and the slow zone makes you take decreased damage, it's just like a strategy that like you only stand in the light zone, ideally if you have that Chrono-faded debuff and you're dropping the debuff off. Now, again, Blizzard employees, close your ears. There is a new strat for how you deal with the Chrono-faded debuff. The fragments of time, you're going to have to learn that on your own. The Chrono-faded debuff, the strat is to pixel stack with both the Chrono-faded debuffs, and this should not work. This should not work. Like, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to stand in the light zone, and you're supposed to dispel it off. But there is a way that you pixel stack with both of the Chrono-faded debuffs, and if you drop them off in the dark zone, you're going to see what you see on screen right here happen, where they're perfectly pixel stacked with both of the Chrono-faded debuffs, and they only take taking damage from one of them, and they're in the DR zone, and so they actually don't even take that much damage from the boss in general. Interesting strategy, you might say. Yeah, it's kind of cool how they're in the dark zone. While it does move away slowly from the group, the dark zone is quite nice. Now, this was the first discovery about how you deal with the Chrono-faded debuffs. There's since been a second discovery, and I wish I streamed more of my POVs. Like, I did a bunch of these dungeons today, and I have like a lot more better POVs of us doing it today. But this is what happens if you actually stand in the light zone and you stack up with this Chrono-faded debuff. So you can see right here, it goes out on myself and the healing priest, and we immediately stack up as fast as possible, and then we just are going to be going into this light zone. We don't even move. We just make sure that we get the light zone, and we're perfectly pixel stacked, and you can see right here, only one player actually took any damage, and they only took one ring's worth of damage because they were perfectly pixel stacked with the rest of the group. Now, the reason that this is even clipped, because we accidentally pulled the pin jewels, so if you are a Blizzard employee, you can open your ears again. Please, for some reason, do not let these mobs fly over the pack. That is actually insane to me that we pulled these in the middle of combat. But anyways, as for the Chrono-faded debuff, whenever you perfectly pixel stack, you either take no damage, a very small amount of damage, some varying amount of no damage to a very small amount of damage. Whereas if you do it natty, you actually take a pretty sizable amount of damage if you don't do it perfectly. So what the strategy that we do in our group is now is what you saw from Equinox earlier, is that they like to perfectly pixel stack in the slow zone. We said, to hell with that. We are just immediately going to pixel stack on top of a player, and then I just like spam ping the player, and then we perfectly pixel stack, and then we get whatever zone we get, because we know that if we get in the slow zone, it's good. If we get in the fast zone, it's also fine. But the tech is pixel stacking the Chrono-faded debuff, and so that makes it a lot easier. I will say, and something that you need to know is if you don't perfectly pixel stack, somebody is going to die. So I'm maybe not useful in a pug, highly useful in a 5-man group. We had it very consistent whenever we were playing with our people today in a key sesh. We did like 3 runs and we messed it up about 0 times. Maybe not super useful in a pug though for people who don't stack up perfectly. It's like really hard to tell. But like, yeah, basically if you don't stack perfectly, somebody's going to die. If you have to do it natty, which I suspect the Blizzard might hotfix this, because they hate me. If you have to do it natty, you should definitely be, if you have the debuff, you should be popping defensives if you're not the person who's getting dispelled immediately. And then you should be like standing in the light zone. Alternatively, if you're the healer, you should be probably popping the external on the player that's going to be holding that debuff for an extended period of time because they're going to be taking a lot of damage and constantly moving inside of that light zone. But yeah, overall, that's the tips for Manifest Timeways. Make sure that you're always moving counterclockwise or right around the boss. You get on the inside track whenever you are dealing with the fragments of time. And then for Chrono-faded, stack the hell up. We stack as 5, baby. Hard stack on top of the pings, and then we're good to go. I hope that helps you guys out on this boss in general. I hope the series has been super useful for you guys who have been watching a bunch of the videos, and I will see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.